What's the worst case of spoiled rotten that you've seen? I work as a wedding planner, and I had this client whose daughter was getting married. The mother, let's call her Linda, had apparently never told her daughter no in her entire life. The daughter, Brittany, was 25 and still lived at home. She'd never had a job, never paid for anything herself, and treated her mother like a personal ATM and assistant. Linda hired me to plan what she called her dream wedding for Brittany. The budget was $150,000, which is already pretty extravagant, but Linda seemed happy to pay for it. From day one, Brittany was impossible to work with. She'd change her mind constantly, demand impossible things, and throw actual tantrums when I explained that certain requests weren't feasible. She wanted to fly in flowers from Japan that would cost $30,000 alone. When I suggested beautiful local alternatives, she screamed at me that I was trying to ruin her special day. Brittany demanded that we rent out an entire luxury resort for a week, not just for the wedding day. When I told her that would add another $200,000 to the budget, she said, "So? It's not like mom can't afford it." But the worst was when Brittany decided she didn't like her fiancé's family. She wanted me to uninvite his parents, siblings, and grandparents because they weren't fancy enough for her wedding. I told her that was completely inappropriate and would probably end her engagement. Brittany's response was to call her mother crying, saying I was being mean to her. Linda immediately called me and said, "Whatever Brittany wants, make it happen. This is her day." That's when I realized this wasn't just about wedding planning. Linda had created a monster, and she was too afraid of her own daughter to set any boundaries. The breaking point came when Brittany demanded that I fire the string quartet she'd originally chosen and hire a full orchestra instead. This would cost an additional $50,000 and require completely redesigning the venue layout. When I explained this to Linda, she just sighed and said, "Add it to the bill." But then Brittany decided she also wanted acrobats performing during dinner, a fireworks show that would require special permits, and a live elephant for photos. Yes, a live elephant. I finally had to sit Linda down and explain that her daughter's requests had become completely unreasonable and that the budget had ballooned to over $400,000. Linda looked exhausted and admitted that Brittany had been like this her whole life. "I just wanted her to be happy," she said. "I never wanted her to struggle like I did growing up." That's when Linda told me something that changed everything. She'd been secretly taking out loans and credit card advances to pay for the wedding. She was going to lose her house if the costs kept increasing. Linda had been too embarrassed to tell Brittany that they couldn't actually afford this wedding. She'd been saying yes to everything while quietly destroying her own financial future. I convinced Linda to let me sit down with Brittany and explain the budget constraints. When I told Brittany that her mother was going into debt for the wedding, she looked genuinely shocked. "What do you mean mom doesn't have unlimited money?" she asked. "She always buys me whatever I want." It turned out Brittany had no concept of how money worked. She thought her mother was wealthy because Linda had always made it seem that way. But here's where it gets worse. When Brittany found out her mother was struggling financially, instead of scaling back the wedding, she suggested that Linda should just get another job or ask grandma for money. Brittany actually said, "This is my wedding day. Mom should figure out how to pay for it. That's what mothers do." That's when Linda finally snapped. She told Brittany the wedding was canceled and that she needed to get a job and start contributing to household expenses. Brittany's response was to move in with her fiancé's family, the same people she'd wanted to uninvite from the wedding. But it gets better. The fiancé's family, who had been quietly horrified by Brittany's behavior throughout the engagement, sat her down and explained exactly why her attitude was unacceptable. They made Brittany get her first job ever at age 25, working at a grocery store. They charged her rent and made her buy her own food and clothes. Brittany lasted exactly 2 weeks before she called her mother begging to come home. But Linda had finally found her backbone. She told Brittany she could move back home only if she kept the job, paid rent, and contributed to household expenses. She also had to pay her mother back for the wedding deposits that couldn't be refunded. Linda told me later that saying no for the first time in 25 years was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but it saved both their relationship and her financial future. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child